Alright, welcome back to Python tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to continue on functions part 2, right? So these two questions we are going to solve in this video. I actually got it from 50 days of 50 days of Python, a challenge a day, right? So it is actually designed by Benjamin Bennett Alexander. It's so that you can like go through your test your Python skills 50 days, like a challenge every day. So of course, if you go down here, we see that there's a challenge for each day. And why I actually choose it is that it has some good function questions, right? So we'll start from the first one and then we'll pick randomly, right? So now let's continue. And I will drop the link to this book in case you want to check it out. It's already on Gumroad, so you can actually go there and purchase it, so you can like practice some questions there. So now we'll start with this first question that says, write a function called divide or square that takes one argument, a number in parentheses, right, and returns the square root of the number if it is divisible by 5, returns its remainder if it is not divisible by 5. For example, if you pass 10 as an argument, then your function should return 3.16 as the square root, right? Alright, so let's try and do this. So to start with, you say write a function called divide a square, or square rather. So I will just copy these, right? So we don't make so we use the def keyword, remember, and a space, then our parentheses, and now we have these, right? So because we want to pass an argument here, so we say num, right, which stands for number, right? And now we hit enter, and of course you know the indentation. Please always take note. So now it says and returns the square root of the number if it is divisible by 5. So if this number is divisible by 5, then it should return the square root. Okay, so what we have to do is to check if this number is, if what is passed in here is divisible by 5. And how we do that is say if num, right, and of course you know the mod operator, right, which is the percentage sign. If num divided by 5 is equal to, right, of course you know we are not using the if I say equal to just the single equal to, this is an assignment operator, so it's not going to work. So I'm using the double equal to, which is the equality operator, right? So I say if num mod 5 is equal to 0, right? That is if it is divisible by 5. What do we want it to do? We want it to return num, return num. Then as you can see, it says it says and returns the square root, right? We are looking for the square root. So whatever you see here, like whenever you see this multiplication sign double, right, it means raised to the power, right? So the square root is actually 0.5. So if I put 2 here, it's going to be the square, right? So now return num square root of 0.5, right? So it's actually going to return this. Then else, what do we want it to do? So we hit enter and say else, and then enter. Remember, I can write it on the same line, but it's not, it doesn't look clean. That's why I'm actually going to the next line. So you say else, what does it do? It say returns its remainder if it is not divisible by 5. Then else return num and return num mod 5, right? Sorry about that. So return num mod 5. So now I run this and I call on these, and remember a function always run whenever you call it, right? And I pass in 10. So let's check. Of course, as you can see, it says return 3.16, and of course I can have this 3.16, but we didn't give it a length, right? So now let's check if it is divisible by 5, what it will return. Let's say 25, and then we'll see run. Of course, see 5.0. Of course, the square root of 25 is 5. So now we'll go on and say something like 100, right? And of course, you see 10.0, and I say 200, and it runs 14 point blah blah blah. And when I say let's pass in something that is not divisible by 5, let's say 9 for example, and of course we have this 4. 9 divided by 5 is going to give you 1, remaining 4, right? So now when I say something like 12 and I run, it gives you 2, which is 5 into 12 will give you 2, will give you 2 remainder 2, right? And when I say something like let's say 22 and I run, of course you still have these 2 because 20 divided by 5 will give you 4, the remaining 2, right? All right, so this is it for this function, right? So this is actually an if statement inside the def function, right? Inside the function rather. So now let's continue by going to a little bit complex one, right? And see what we have there. It says write a function called convert_add, right? Let me copy this. Convert_add that takes a list of string as an argument and converts it to integers and sums the list. All right, so now we'll go on and see what we can do. You say it takes a list of strings as an argument and converts it to integer. It sounds pretty complex, but let's break it down. Convert_add, right? And now we have our parentheses and takes a list of list of strings, right? Let's just say num, right? Let's just leave it like that. And now, so to start with, right, I want to show you something. When I say type, right, when I say type and I say something like hello and I run this, of course see str, which is a string. And when I say type, yeah, and I say 12, and of course you see integer. And when I say type and I say something like 12.3 and I run floats. And when I say type, right, when I say type, I just want to show you some things, right, so you know what we are doing here. And I say sorry, I create a list and I say 1, I say 2, I say 3, I say 4. Of course you see list, right? All right, so let's go back. So you say the question says write a function called convert_add that takes a list of strings, right, as an argument and converts it to integers and sums the list. All right, so what we want to do is I want to build a function that will take some strings as an argument, right, and then convert it to an integer, then sum it all together. So now let's start and let's get into it properly. So the first thing we want to say, we'll say lst, since it is list, and I say is equals to, and I create an empty list, right? An empty list. So I say list, right? I leave it empty, right? Then I come down here. Then remember, we can use loop to loop through this because it is actually asking us to loop it. So as soon as it runs the first time, it adds this together. So all we have to do is that okay, let's continue. Let's say for, right? You can say for I in num, right? That is for every element in this number, right, in this list, right? So what do I want it to do? I say this lst, which is this placeholder, lst, right, dot append, right? Then what am I trying to append here? I'm trying to append everything, that every element that is inside this num, I'm trying to append it to this list so it becomes a list. And so as soon as it's become a list, we can now convert it to an integer, right? So I say dot append, then remember int, right? Int stands for integer, right? So I say, which is we are converting whatever this I is to an integer I, right? So now all we have to do now is to return, right? We'll say in order to do this, right, we have to go out of the loop. Yeah, we have to go out of the loop, leave this indentation and just go out of the loop and say return, so that it will return everything. If not, it will just return the last one, right? So now it will just return the first one rather. So now I'll say return what are we returning? Return sum, because it say add everything. So I'll say sum of what? Sum of LST. This one. This is what we are trying to add. Now remember, we use this one, right? We have this num, whatever argument we add in here, right? We append it to this one. That is the I. As soon as I runs, when it loops, it appends it here, and then we sum it together. So we're trying to sum this LST. So now let's sum it LST, and let's run. And let me just create something here. Oh, all right, so when I call on convert add, right, and I create a list of numbers, and I say 1, and I go and I say 2, and I say 2, and I say 3, right? So what do we have there? 1, 3, 5. All right, so let's say and sum it to 9. All right, let's run this first and see. And of course we'll have 6. This is to say that this strings is now has now been converted to an integer, and now it is 6. So now let's just change these parameters to make sure what we have there is correlates with what is here, 3 and 5. And now let's run. Of course we'll have 9. All right, so let me show you something else. So now let's do this. I come here and I say convert add, right, and I say comma, and I say this is 9, and I say 3, right? Look at what happens. It returns 12. So I don't know if you understand what is going on here. So whatever you pass in here is automatically an integer, right? So if you pass in an integer, there's no problem in it. If you pass in a float, it converts it to an integer. If I say 2.0, right, and I run, of course it returns 14. So if I say 2.5, which is supposed to be 14.5, yeah, but now it returns 14 because it converts it to an integer and it forgets whatever is after the decimal point. All right, so this is it actually from the first 2 questions from Gumroad. That is from 50 days of Python, right? This is actually the first 2 questions there, but I want to quickly show you something because of this converting an integer to converting a string to an integer, right? So I want to also show you that you can convert an integer to a string. So let's do this. Let's say a is equal to converting, okay, let's say 12, right? And I say str, and I say a, right, and I run. Of course you see this string. As long as it's inside this quotation mark, it's a string. So to actually convert something into a string or an integer or a float, right, you can actually use just say float, right, and you see this is 12.0. Of course it converted to a float. So this is how you actually do the conversion. And this sum operator, we have used it, right? I think we have used it. It's actually, we should have used it before. It is actually used to do addition. All right, so we can actually solve this in another form. We can like build a function again, like another loop inside this that will actually do the addition for us. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. Like I said, I will try to solve as many function questions as I can before we move on to the next one, right, so that it can help you with the understanding. I don't know how many minutes this is, but I wanted to quickly build another function, which is to check if a function is even or odd, right? So I can say def even num, right? I'm sorry if this is actually getting long. I don't actually like doing long videos, right? Okay, how about we do something like num1 plus num2, yeah. Then what do I want it to do? I want it to add these two together and check if it is even or if it is odd. So I say if, yeah, I have this bracket and I say num1 plus num2 and divided by mod 2 is equal to 0. Hope you know that this mod operator is to check if something is a 0. If something is this mod operator returns 0, right? It returns the remainder rather. What am I saying? It returns the remainder. So what I'm trying to say is that 3 mod 2 will return 1, right? It returns the remainder. Then when I say 5 mod 2 will return, it will just return the remainder, which is also 1, right? So when I say 5 mod 5, it will return 0. So that is what we're actually trying to do here. I'm trying to check if this plus this divided by 2, if the remainder is 0, right? So what do I want it to do? I want it to return this is an odd number, this is an even number, right? And I go out of here and I say else, and I say return okay, return what am I doing? Return this is an odd number. All right, so let's run and we'll have a problem. Oh, this is supposed to be a comma, sorry about that. And I run and I say colon even number. Let's see what we have. Don't mind me, it's like I'm tired today. So I say sorry, and I say 3 comma 5, and when I run, you say this is an even number, of course, because then I can say something like comma, then return this comma. Let me actually check if this is going to work. Okay, comma, I say return num plus num2, num1, num2. Okay, so of course it works. So I'm trying to get the what is it called? I could have used the f string here, but by using the print statement, right? But here I'm trying to get just the output, right? So when I say even number, so when I say 3 plus 5, of course this is an even number. So when I say something like 3 plus 4, and I say this is an odd number. So if I just copy this line and put it here, and I run this and I run this is an odd number, 7. All right, so thank you so much for being patient and watching into this to this length. And of course this returns 0, this returns the remainder. And of course, you know what this does, this double operator divided by 4, and I run, of course returns 1. Of course it returns how many times this has been divided. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. I'm sorry that this video is actually long, right? But I just wanted to cover as many things as I can. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next one.